Thank you for subscribing to my channel and watching all the videos so far. This is a video that is very awaited. I've been wanting to see this video for a long time, and it's all about my training as a pre and postnatal trainer. So that means training while you're pregnant, throughout pregnancy, after you've given birth, and getting you back to where you were before you had your child. Alison is my client my protege client with this. Before I did my actual pre and postnatal qualification, I had one other client who got pregnant while I was training her, and then I continued my work with her after I gained my qualification, and I trained throughout pregnancy. But Alison, I've trained from very early on in her pregnancy when I had the qualification. So you're my proof, my living proof. So we're just going to do a few questions and have a conversation about everything that we've experienced whilst training together, because I thought this is a subject that many women get very worried about. Many women want to stay fit and active during their pregnancy, but for some reason they don't, and they put that down to a range of reasons that we're going to discuss. But I wanted to do this video just to let women out there know that it is possible to stay fit while you're pregnant, and it is possible to get back to your level of fitness no matter what happens during your pregnancy. So, how was your fitness and your exercise prior to being pregnant 10 years ago, just when you were staying fit? What was it like?
So I was a very active person. I focused a lot on exercise. I did a lot of cardiovascular activities, so jogging, a lot of long walking, cross trainer, etc. So that's essentially what kept me fit and active and looking good.
Okay. So you hadn't ever had a trainer?
No. And
you never really wanted a trainer?
No.
So why had you never wanted a trainer?
I didn't think that I needed one. No reason other than that. I didn't really think about it, but I thought that given my exercise routine was doing well for me, so I never really thought about it.
I think that's really important to say, because when a lot of people watch this video, they're going to assume that Alison's a person who's always had a trainer for this for that, and blah blah blah. But she's a normal woman who was doing fine on her own, was jogging, was fit, had a great body, didn't need a trainer, so didn't get one for that reason. Then you got pregnant.
I twisted my ankle when I fell pregnant, and I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. But that obviously impacted my exercise. I wasn't able to do any exercise. I wasn't able to walk anywhere. That was essentially through my first trimester. I was seeing a physiotherapist, I think, for 2 to 3 months. And then that took me through to my first trimester. And at the start of my second trimester, I was then diagnosed with pelvic girdle pain.
Could you explain, without being too intimate, a bit of how it felt with the baby being so low on your pelvic floor, the pains you experienced, and how you combated that?
Ooh. It's really hard to put into words. It's just constant pressure downwards.
So does it feel like you need to go to the toilet?
I think any pregnant woman, regardless of whether they're carrying low or whether they've got pelvic girdle pain, need to go to the toilet all the time.
Right.
But there is a pressure to need to go to the toilet, but also it's just a pain that exists down below, and it's just constant pain.
Sure.
And when you walk, there is even more pain. So as soon as you put pressure, you stand up. Or even sitting down towards the end, pretty much any type of movement causes some sort of pain there.
Sleep towards the end.
I couldn't sleep towards the end. I think that was because of the weight as well, but it really put a lot of pressure on that area. So it's just, I suppose it's more like stinging kind of pain down below. It's really very, very hard to describe.
And it became quite chronic for you as well, didn't it?
It did.
There was no time I saw you that you didn't feel it.
It was, I think as it got worse as the pregnancy progressed, as I mentioned before. I then saw a physiotherapist, started seeing other physiotherapists for that condition, and it was at that point that, through luck, Maya contacted me and asked if I needed a personal trainer, and then I met you, and you were able to sort of help me devise a program to deal with my pelvic girdle pain. So that was probably essentially what motivated me to get a trainer.
Right, okay, cool.
But I wasn't able to walk. I was catching a cab in probably the last month of training, when I trained up until probably 2 weeks before I had the baby, which was great. But the only thing I did, or any activity I did, was the training, and I had to catch a cab to gym to be able to go to my lessons.
But I just want to fill women out there with hope that A, people do go through it, as you can tell, and B, there is some relief that you can gain. So even though she was in this much pain, she couldn't even walk, she would still come to our sessions, and that's because in our sessions we would do specific things that were going to help relieve you of that pain. I remember we'd sit on the ball and we'd be moving, we'd do certain exercises with your hips and your lower region that would really relieve that pain.
That's right.
Just temporarily for you to be able to think. And I remember you'd come to the sessions and you'd just be like, oh my God, this is the first time I can actually just relax a bit because I'm not in such pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just an important point I want to point out there. Having a trainer is not essential. I would not say that every single person in the world needs a trainer. I'd say if every person in the world could afford and liked and saw the benefits of one, they should definitely get one, but it's not a necessity. That's what I want to point out. However, when Alison had her pelvic girdle pain, I think it was a necessity at that point.
Yes.
Because you wanted to be around somebody who was trained, who was going to monitor you based on what they know, and is going to take care of you based on that.
Yes. And at that time I was actually seeing a physiotherapist to treat that condition, and Maya was in contact with my physiotherapist to ensure she was putting together a training program that was safe enough. And I think there's one thing I'd like to point out as well, is that when you are pregnant, it's very, very important to look after yourself and your body, and having a trainer, even if you don't have any ailments, is important, because as Maya mentioned, you are being monitored, you're being watched, and your body goes through a lot of changes when you're pregnant. Your ligaments become softer, your body's preparing to have a baby, it's growing a baby, and one exercise you do one day won't actually be as good for you the next day. And I was taught that through my pregnancy, and I think having a trainer is essential to combat those risks, because you could injure yourself very easily.
Definitely, I agree. I would also like to ask you in specifics about your pregnancy. So can you explain from the first day you found out you're pregnant all the way to giving birth, how it went?
So I think first trimester, besides the ankle, I was experiencing a lot of sort of morning sickness, tiredness, nausea. Wasn't ideal, wasn't great, I wasn't active at all, and
sorry, just wanted to point out as well, in your first trimester, as a personal trainer, we are taught like when we do the pre and postnatal qualification and everything, to not push you, because at that point you're your illest. Your body's going through everything, more blood's coming into your body, you're losing so much fluid, you're gaining so much mind problems, you're just in a bad way really. So we're taught to not push you and not try and expect anything of you, but literally just to get you to function as normal. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So that was my first trimester. Second trimester, you generally feel better in your second trimester. I had the pelvic girdle pain, which impacted my mobility, but it was generally I felt good, energy-wise. I was still able to move. Third trimester, then I dropped down in terms of my mobility again. The pelvic girdle pain just became worse, and I think up to that point I became less able to move, to the point where I was catching a taxi to the gym to attend my training sessions because I was unable to walk. Just as well, just a disclaimer, it's very, very normal for it to go in that pattern. So it's like a pleasure pain. So you start off very low in your first trimester, then you go up to your highest in your second, and then generally it's downward. I don't think in your third you feel as bad as your first. That's true.
But you've got new problems now. So you're big at this point, you feel more tired, but you're not nauseous as much, and you're not in as much pain, because I think you've just got used to the pains of like carrying someone else. So that's something for people to be aware of as well. If you're going to be active during your pregnancy, first trimester, don't expect to feel the best in the gym. Even though you might look the best because you actually haven't got a belly or a bump yet, you won't feel the best. Second trimester, that's your most ideal time. Your body's adjusted quite a bit, you feel better, the baby's there a bit, so you know that there is actually something, there's a reason you feel this bad, and you're at your best. Third trimester, your body's getting ready for you to get rid of the baby now and let it come out, and that's when you start to feel a bit more different, and you feel a bit slower. The pace slows.
It does slow down. You get heavier.
Exactly.
So undoubtedly you get slower.
Okay, now apply those changes to our training. So we know we met in the second trimester. At this point, you've had your pelvic girdle pain. You're not bad by the time you knew me, because you're not as nauseous and tired and as you were in the first trimester. But you are conscious of your pelvic girdle pain. So let's go through our training and how that was impacted and how that was for you, the exercises you liked, the exercises you disliked, things that shocked you.
So when I first started, I had a decent amount of energy, and you pulled together a program which was essentially focused on strengthening my whole body, with focus on my arms, my legs, my pelvic region, and also some pelvic floor work, which is again extremely important to focus on when you are pregnant. And throughout the second trimester, I think we had quite good sessions. I was quite strong. There was some CV activity. Obviously, I wasn't able to jog or do anything that strenuous, so you were doing like the Burkles, other types of exercises that were beneficial.
Yeah, so that, just for people so they know, that's all body floor exercises and very functional movements that were using all of our body, getting our heart rate up, but not putting extra strain on the areas that couldn't move anymore. So there was a good balance.
It was a fantastic balance.
And resistance that we were doing in the second trimester.
And at that point, I was able to stand.
Yes.
And we were doing a lot of exercises, me standing. And there was the fitness ball, the stability ball, which you call it. We were using also, because it was quite important for me to move my pelvis around. But as the pregnancy progressed and I moved into my third trimester, obviously I got more tired and I became heavier. The baby was growing.
Definitely.
And I was unable to stand for long periods and move for long periods. So you sort of cut down, I suppose, cardiovascular work. You continued on the strengthening, but I was seated, for example.
Exactly. A couple of things there. A lot of women get worried. I remember I've had clients who I've been training who have also been pregnant, but they were a lot more anxious about doing things while you're pregnant. So they were saying, I shouldn't even be lifting this, I shouldn't be carrying bags, I shouldn't be carrying shopping. And I just wanted to be clear about the guidelines of what you can do when you're pregnant. Essentially, the only things you have to worry about is your blood pressure increasing, you getting heavier, and your centre of gravity falling off. So as you lift things over your head, your blood pressure is at risk of dropping or raising out of panic. So when you get heavier and bigger, you need to stop raising things over your head, which I think we didn't really do much of anyway. And you also need to make sure that your platform is very stable. So there can be no more going on a Bosu ball, there can be no more putting yourself under huge duress where your stability can go off, because that's the kind of thing that's going to put you at risk. On top of that, you have to reduce the weight that you're lifting. So obviously we weren't lifting heavy weights because we weren't training before pregnancy, but people that do get pregnant while you're training, just remember to lower your weights and make sure that your core and your pelvic floor are engaged at all times, and your core exercises, if you're somebody that just does loads of abs all the time, does reduce. Because what happens is there's a condition called Diastasis Recti, which you've actually experienced, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's basically when any woman is pregnant, your core plates have to separate in order for the baby to have room to move and live. So when you've had your child, the plates, there's a chance that the plates don't go back together and they don't mold together. This means that there'll be a shift in your stomach, and that it won't all sit the way it did before. So that's why sometimes you can have cases of women who actually still look like they could be pregnant, even though they're not big and they aren't pregnant. Their stomach and all the fat in their stomach has just fallen out of being held in by their core plates. So the way that you target against this is by doing good pelvic floor exercises, and you do good stability, strengthening, isometric, which just means holding, ab exercises. Instead of doing sit-ups or anything twisting, you just do things that hold. So I'm going to try and get some examples, and they should come on screen around now. And those are the kind of exercises that are going to really strengthen your core and help those plates come back together, as opposed to separate them further, and the twisting cause more stress and hassle on your core and your body. And your body, as you know, is very vulnerable after you've had a baby, and it takes you ages to get back into the swing of things. And the pelvic floor muscles, which you didn't even realise would be as important, they actually can stop you from wetting yourself or from having accidents with the toilet. And I don't want to ask you too many personal things about that, but I remember that being an issue as well.
Yes.
Because Alice has got a very small frame as it is. You're very slight, and you were never big or anything, and quite short as well. So her baby was particularly big on her, and it lay very low as well. So it was a lot of stress on your pelvic. So it's important that at that point I didn't just think, okay, cool, you're done now. You were training up until 2 weeks before your baby came. So we really went to the end, and you can go to the end, but you just have to keep adapting and keep changing. Something we haven't mentioned before is your own how disheartened you felt or encouraged, the two, because I have had clients who feel more and more disheartened as they get along, because they feel like, oh my god, 3 weeks ago this was so easy, and now look, I can't even move, I can't. Did you experience any of that?
No, I mean, I experienced not being able to do certain exercises as well as I had 3 weeks before, for example, but I wasn't discouraged or disheartened. I was probably more motivated to continue, and I suppose I had full trust in you and your ability to train me and to adapt the exercises according to my condition, or my condition by how I was at that time for the pregnancy.
I agree. I've mentioned this before, but I just want to home in on how important it is to have goals, because at the end of the day, she might have been pregnant, she might have had all these things going on, but she's still my client, and I saw her in that way. So I saw anything you come to me with, anything you don't like of your body, if you want your bum to be bigger or if you want your legs to be stronger, that's our aim. We're not looking at the fact that you've got a belly, we're looking at those things, and I think that's really helped you pull through it, because then you're like, okay, I'm here to train, I'm not here to talk about the pregnancy, which is what I think and talk about all day long. I'm here to focus on what I like to do. A lot of people during pregnancy, they look at supplements and extra things they can eat or ingest to help them along the way. Did you do that?
I didn't take supplements during the pregnancy. The only thing I did take was iron, and that's because when you're pregnant you generally are low in iron. Most women are, so you need to take iron supplements. But other than that, I stayed away from the supplements. I essentially focused on my diet being extremely healthy and balanced, and from that I don't think there was a need to do so. My pregnancy was healthy, my baby was growing well, there were no issues that the midwives found as they were checking me out. So
exactly. When we say balance, we mean that some days she would come to me and she was absolutely knackered, absolutely tired, and she was having her chocolate when she got home because she needed it, and she didn't feel bad about it, and that's exactly what I loved. It was never, when we were training, it was never about I excessively can't get fat while I'm pregnant. It was never that. No. You were very concerned about your health and being healthy as opposed to looking a certain way, which I think women everywhere need to do in general. Mostly when you're pregnant. If you have a lifestyle or a social life that involves you being out and about and looking a certain way, a lot of the time getting pregnant can be a bit worrying, and you can be a bit like, oh my god, I'm pregnant, what's going to happen to my body? But you cannot think like that. Getting pregnant is not the time to start calorie counting and thinking I shouldn't be eating this, I shouldn't be eating that. Absolutely you ate a lot during your pregnancy, and very balanced. You were having breakfast, lunch and dinner and pieces in between, and nothing very, very bad. You're getting everything you needed, and Dominique, your baby, is very healthy as a result of it. So I think that I'm a huge advocate of not using supplements when you don't have to. As she said, iron is what she used only, and I think that is very vital as well. Like I don't think that we need, I would say this because of my own dietary journey, but I don't think we need to gain anything from cultivated supplements that we can't gain from whole food.
That's right.
Goodness.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think the one thing to add to that, I suppose when you do fall pregnant, the one thing as a woman you'll worry about is putting on additional weight. And you do put on additional weight, but you need to put on some weight to be able to carry your baby. However, if you train and if you do eat a balanced diet, you won't necessarily put on, that much extra. And I don't think women should be fearful of that. I think it's really important to take care of yourself, your body, and your baby during your pregnancy. That is the most thing. And if you're hungry, you eat, right? And if you've got cravings for a particular type of food, you eat it, because it's your body telling you,
Yeah.
in my view anyway, it's your body telling you
need
you are
that.
lacking something.
Yes,
So
I agree.
I think it's extremely important. You should never, I agree with you, never count calories. There's not the time to lose weight, not time to worry about what you're eating. You should absolutely eat what you need.
Did you crave anything out of the ordinary?
Just not really. I just needed more meat,
Right.
and I think it's because of the iron deficiency.
Okay, fair enough.
But I was eating pretty much everything else. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's just talk a little bit about the aesthetic way of seeing things. So we spoke about being actually healthy within your body, which is obviously of the utmost importance. But your body changing and your opinion of your body, how was that in reality, and how would it have differed had you not been training? Do you think?
I think because I wasn't able to exercise because of my ailments, I don't think I would have been able to retain the body that I did during pregnancy. But because I trained, and I know it must be because of that, I was extremely happy with the way that I looked.
She looked phenomenal, by the way. There should be some pictures up by now, as I'm saying this, of how she was looking during her pregnancy. You did a lot of things that were, some women may see it as vain or vanity, making you do these things. Like you went on a photo shoot, you went to Ibiza, you got all your bikinis ordered for Ibiza, and you chose each one each day. It was lovely to watch. But those are the things you did. And those are girly things to do. So I don't know why anyone would stop doing those things. You know, just because you're pregnant, it doesn't stop you from doing these things. And I think that's really important, and it's really positive to see that.
Yes.
So what would you say about your image of pregnant women now, and pregnancy and the bump being like a nice thing to have? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think before I fell pregnant, I never had a great view of being pregnant. I never thought it was a very attractive view. I never thought it was that attractive. But then when I fell pregnant, obviously at the start you think, oh gosh, I'm going to get big, I'm going to get a big bump, etc. But as I went through, I actually found it's actually a beautiful time, and it's a very feminine thing. It is, being pregnant is feminine, and that's what our bodies are made for, essentially. And so I then turned it into being beautiful during pregnancy, and I actually was very, very pleased that I did that, and hopefully it sort of helped other women who did see me think, okay, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to fall into a rut. You don't stop looking after yourself, you don't put your makeup on. Actually, it's a time where you should look after yourself, and as you said, health, but also aesthetically, because it makes you feel good. So at the end of the day, you are putting on weight, you're growing, so there are other things you can do to make yourself feel and look better, which I think I'm pleased with how I did it.
Totally agree. And what would you say about women everywhere? Obviously we're a strong bunch, we have to be, who are like yourself. Alison was working up until too late on in the pregnancy, in my opinion, working in a very corporate environment where there wasn't much leeway for you to do things like you could take your shoes off, and that was like about it. She was wearing heels, like it was a very stressful time. And mind-wise, your mind is obviously going crazy because you've got all these new emotions and feelings and everything else you can think of. What would you say to women who are battling that? Like, what would you say? How do you stay sane, basically?
You just keep going, I suppose. But training is another thing that helped with the stress relief there. Because I was locked indoors, either in the office or at home. And I did work from home quite a lot because I was unable to get to work easily. So that helped me. I was able to get out of the house. It released obviously endorphins, exercising does, which made you feel good. It relaxed my mind, and then I was able to sleep much better. So I think you should just push on, particularly when you're pregnant, because you don't feel the best or the greatest when you're pregnant. So by exercising, I think helps you mentally and physically in a number of ways. So I would suggest that it would be the time to actually go for it.
So you're saying even if a person, because you obviously were originally quite fit, and you'd never trained with a trainer before though?
No.
But you had been doing your own fitness and etc. So even a person who hasn't ever had any kind of history with the gym or any kind of fitness, you would recommend that when they're pregnant, you should do it?
Absolutely. And I think it's good for your body to recognise exercise when you're pregnant, because once you have your baby, the worst, I suppose any woman's worst nightmare is to put on a lot of weight and not be able to get back to exercise quickly enough, because it's very, very difficult. But if you train your body to recognize exercise, it's much easier to get back into it.
Yeah.
Even though it took me 6 months to get back into it following the birth, because I had other complications as well as the diastasis and pelvic girdle pain. But my body pretty much instantly, after one session, recognized activity.
Exactly.
So I don't think it matters whether you've been active or not. I think it's from a safety perspective, but also from a recovery perspective, very important.
Definitely, completely agree. As a trainer, obviously, I know about muscle memory, so that's probably what you're describing when you say after one session your body was recognizing it. And that's what you have when you are fit and you do train. And it doesn't have to necessarily be in a gym, but any kind of exercise or sport that you do, you can have a break from it and you go back to it, and your body's an amazing thing. It does recognize what you've been doing, and it will go back into the motion of it quite quickly.
Yes.
What would you say to women who have all these things to worry about, obviously working, a social life, everything else you can think of, and just think, well, I don't really think I can afford a personal trainer on top of that. Why would I spend money on a trainer when I could spend money on X, Y, Z?
Good question. It's not cheap, but again, it depends what you value. And I think if obviously being social and keeping your social life going, you know, your life going with your partner, you know, is very, very important. But being active, again, as I mentioned before, it's very important when you're pregnant, I believe. And I think it's important to set aside the money to be able to do that. Even one session a week. You don't have to do 2 sessions, 1 session a week, just to keep your body moving and keep your mind active as well.
Definitely.
So you can release any tension, whether it's in your body, in your mind, from your work, what we discussed before. I would say do it.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's really important for us to talk about things like this, because I feel like in the society that we live in, there is a huge gender bias, as I mentioned in most of my videos, and women are not really encouraged to voice how things like this feel. So how pregnancy is, it's just something that you do. You get pregnant, you have a child, it's not a sickness, it's normal, it's what happens. But I feel like when I've encountered, even myself, I had that opinion. I just assumed pregnancy was something that happens and you do it and you get over it. But after meeting so many successful women that I look up to, and I'm training them and I'm seeing what they're going through, and I'm just wondering, how do people do it? Literally, it looks impossible. So with that in mind, it's quite a difficult question I'm going to ask. I'm going to say, people that have that kind of mentality, i.e. pregnancy is nothing important, you just do it, you don't need all this special attention, you don't need to go get a personal trainer just because you're pregnant. What would you say to someone like that?
That's completely false.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's tough.
Did you expect it to be as hard as it was?
I expected it to be hard, but probably not as hard as it was. But then I tried to have many expectations, because I've had a lot of friends that have gone through it, and some of them had hard pregnancies, others didn't. Mine was probably one of the harder ones that I know of. And no, I don't agree with that statement, I suppose, or that thought process.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we don't try and put that message across, that it's just something that happens, you'll be alright, it's okay, and look at the whole pregnancy thing as a statistic. So thinking that, okay, so many people get pregnant all the time and they survive and they're fine without all this extra help, so why should you have it? Look at yourself as an individual. Yes, there are some people that go unscathed through pregnancy and they're fine and whatever, but there's no one that goes through pregnancy and doesn't have to adjust their life in some way. In some way you'll have to, and if you're in a position where when you can see the benefits and can afford the benefits of training and of extra exercise or Pilates or anything extra to help you through that, then by all means go for it and don't feel bad just because women for centuries have been having babies and not complaining. That doesn't mean that you're made to not feel anything when you're pregnant. Could you talk a little bit about your actual delivery and pregnancy, like of your baby, childbirth, and explain how training helped that, how training may have made that harder? Obviously I don't think it's made it harder, but just explain how it was for you.
It wasn't the nicest moment of my life. It was a tough delivery, traumatic. I prepared for it also by Hypno Birthing.
Yes.
Hypno Birthing is essentially using your mind control and strength to be able to birth naturally, to help you through the contractions, and sort of try to stay as calm and relaxed as possible using a number of breathing techniques.
So the 6 months that you didn't see me, so you've had the baby, you've had your delivery, we just spoke about what delivery was like. What are you going through up until the point where you get back into training again?
Okay, so for 2 to 3 months I wasn't able to walk or move properly following the birth. I was seeing a physiotherapist to help with lower back pain, upper back pain, shoulders, pelvic girdle pain, and then I also was diagnosed with Diastasis Recti, a bad case of it. So I started seeing a second physiotherapist help me with that condition. So I wasn't able to exercise at all up until that point, and there were obviously other issues with sleep deprivation, looking after a newborn, all those other things that come with having a baby. And my baby also was diagnosed with an allergy, which obviously made things that much harder. But by 6 months into the following the birth, I was then signed off by my physiotherapist to then exercise, albeit very limited, with limited scope. And that's when I came back to you, and then you spoke to my physiotherapist and devised a program to allow to meet my condition.
Sure. And since you started training again, obviously it's been a struggle at times because you are all of those things now that you've actually got the baby. You're also sleep deprived and everything you're feeling with third trimester really, but just without the weight on you. So how has it been coming back into training? Have you enjoyed it? Do you dread it? What's your feelings?
Fantastic. It's
Thank you.
it's the one thing that makes me feel normal again.
Right.
When you have a baby, obviously your life gets turned upside down. It changes. There's a little thing depending on you, which you're obviously going to do everything for, but you take a back seat. And I think it takes some time to then go back to sort of a normal routine, and exercise for me is one of those things. And so I've absolutely loved coming back, and I look forward to it, and it makes me feel good. So even if I am sleep deprived, I will feel energized following the session.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly. It's like 1 hour just for you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we've discussed quite a bit. I've racked your brains on everything, even things you don't want to remember. Can you give the people that are watching this, women and pregnant first-time mums mainly, some advice on everything that you want? It doesn't have to be training based. It can be. It'd be great for me if it was, but it doesn't have to be training based. It can be anything that you would say to a new first-time mum that she might benefit from.
For the pregnancy period, very, very important to look after yourself. I think I mentioned this before already. Keep living your life as much as possible, because your life changes once you have a baby. Spend time with your partner, spend time with your friends, go out to all the dinners that you need to, go to the theatre, go to the opera, go to wherever, train, exercise, eat well, have fun, go on your holidays, because the holidays won't ever be the same again. So that's during your pregnancy period. I can vouch for that. I've done that, and I'm very, very happy that I did. Following the birth, again, I think it's hard to live a normal life, and it's a new life, and I suppose the focus is on your baby and essentially trying to stay awake. And then obviously reconnect with your partner, which is another thing. But as you're going through all of that, try to maintain a sense of normality as much as possible. So if you can exercise, I mean, I couldn't exercise because of my conditions, but if you can go back 6 weeks after start, obviously don't go back to some aggressive training, but definitely do some form of activity. And certainly go back out to restaurants. You can do it with the baby. You just go for lunch rather than dinner, which is fine. And you go on holidays. I started going on holidays when my little one was 3 months, 4 months. In any case, it's a different holiday, but it's still a holiday. And I think it's important to try going back to the types of activities that you used to do prior to being pregnant, as well as being pregnant. And then obviously spend time with your partner as much as possible. And then spend time with your baby as well.
Okay, lovely. Nice, thank you. So, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed everything that we've covered today. I'm sure this is a video that will touch loads of women, because a lot of women do go through this, and the amount of time I have women who've come to me like a year or 3 years after their baby's born, and they're like, I wish I'd just gone back to training, I wish I'd trained during, I don't know why I didn't. This is a video for you to tell you not to make that mistake. Start training from an early point. and continue, and this is the proof that it can work. Hope you've enjoyed. Please subscribe, please like, please share with anyone that you think would love this, and please give me any more ideas about what you'd like me to do videos on. Thank you and goodbye.